this. And I'm going to share my screen and we'll just go through this quick.
Okay.
Okay, do you see my selling solar screen there?
Yes.
Okay. By none other than yours truly. Okay, so objective. Help someone understand the basics of selling solar systems. There are several types. There's a lease, a prepaid lease, a PPA, all of which are under the solar lease umbrella, right? And then there's
hmm
ownership. Ownership is obviously just that. You own the system. Unlike the leases, you do not own the systems. Um, so why is solar so popular? Environmental reasons, the feel good, yada, yada. But in honesty, all people really care about is saving money, right? That's why they do it, is to get a return on their investment, to save money. And that's what we do day in and day out, doing cash out, deck and sell refis, right? Same thing. Um, where is solar popular? So it's going to be popular in those utilities where the rates are the highest, right? There's some states where the rates are cheap, and so there's no real benefit in those states. Takes too long for the system to pay itself off if you're just offsetting real cheap rates. But these states here, California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, North Carolina, New Jersey, Georgia, uh, is that Massachusetts or is that Maine? I don't know. Texas and New York. Those are the high states. Those are the ones that we target, and we can do in any state, any of those states. San Diego, believe it or not, has the highest rates in the nation. Big Bear Electric and Hawaii have super high rates too. Um, Probably even more so than San Diego, but they're limited because of their shade issues, right? They have a lot of trees, a lot of jungles in Hawaii, and so um, shading of a solar panel is no good. It doesn't allow it to produce, so that they have issues trying to incorporate solar in those states.
Yeah.
And like I said, states that have low rates take a long time to have a return on investment. California is the highest solar adoption of all the states because of our overall high utility rates and our great sun exposure for solar production. So you can have states where the rates are really high, like Washington, but if it's cloudy and rainy all year long and they don't get any sun, they don't get any production. So that's why our
Yeah.
state is the best. We have, it's actually our state and I think a place somewhere in the Middle East has the best sun exposure in the world for solar production. So we're kind
Oh,
of
wow.
yeah. Um, so not all solar systems are equal. There are several variables to consider when it comes to the size of a solar system needed for a client, including sun exposure, geographic location, and orientation. Let's compare two identical 8 kW systems in two different locations and orientations. You will see there are variables. The variables dictate how much energy the system will produce. So an 8 kW system in Palm Springs facing south will produce 14,144 kilowatt hours a year. Same system facing west will produce 12,000. And that's just because south gets better exposure than west, right? Likewise, that same system in San Francisco facing south will produce 11,980 opposed to 14,144. That's a big difference. And if facing west, it only produces 10,303 versus 12,000. That's because San Francisco doesn't get as much sunlight as Palm Springs. So a lot of times people will say, well, what size system do I need? Is a 10K system going to produce 10,000 kilowatt hours? No, that's not the way it works. That same system is going to produce differently depending on where it is on the planet, what kind of sun exposure, and what direction you face them. Roof space is often an issue, so we must put panels arrays in multiple orientations facing different directions. In Southern California, south-facing systems produce the best, west is second, east is third, and then obviously north is no bueno. Oh, Claire just jumped on. Hi, Claire.
Hey, how are you? I'm so sorry I'm late.
Oh, that's fine. I'm recording this, so I will send you guys copies when I'm done. And I'll also send you a copy of this job aid that kind of goes through the processes. So we're basically just talking about the differences between solar systems. So we basically went over the size of the system is not always the same depending on its location. If it's in a state where we get more sun than other states, we get more production. Like in California, we get more production than Washington because we get more sun. And then the direction that the solar panels are facing often dictate what kind of production you're going to get. So a system size of X isn't going to produce the same from state to state and orientation to orientation. It all depends on how you face the panels, and where they're located on the planet in terms of sun exposure. So that's kind of the basics. That's where we're at now. Now we're talking about sometimes we have roof spaces where we can't get everything they need on one roof space. Like this picture as an example, this is south facing, this is east, and this is west, right? So we know south produces more than any other orientation. West is second best, east is third best. But when we're limited on roof space, we have to do what we got to do, right? So we put as much on as we can, and then we do the math on all three of these to see what each one's going to produce to make sure we're producing enough to cover whatever their usage is. North roofs don't work unless you do a reverse tilt. So this is what a reverse tilt looks like. It's on the north side of the roof, but they're tilting them to the south to try to get production. This works. It's not as aesthetically appealing being off the roof like that. And the other thing is if you have multiple rows of these, then this row is going to cast a shadow on the row behind it. So we lose real estate when we do that because we have to offset them enough so that this row doesn't cast a shadow on the row behind it. Ground mounts are better than rooftop systems for two reasons. First, we can face it the exact orientation we want to get the best production, which is south. And then secondly, solar panels, just like any electronic, they are most efficient when they are cooler, right? Even though they need the sun to absorb the energy to produce electricity, just like any electronic, they work best when they're cooler. So if you look at roof mounted systems, they're 6 inches off the roof to give that little airflow underneath it. But there's still a heat layer in between those panels and the roof that cause inefficiencies. Remember, solar panels are electronic like your cell phone. Anything electronic loses efficiency when they get hot. And we've all experienced that with our cell phones, right? Sizing the system. So in order to size a system, we need to calculate how many kilowatt hours a year the client is using. We also need to determine if they plan to increase their usage. Increases are commonly due to adding loads that they do not currently have, such as electric cars, pools, spas, electric heaters, dryers, stoves. Family sizes are increasing, yada, yada. So it's always important to find that out and see if they need to add more for any future usages. Another phenomenon that occurs when people get solar is they tend to use more energy than they previously did. This mental switch goes off that says, I have solar, I can leave the lights on, I can turn the AC down, let it ride, yada, yada, right? The average homeowner tends to use about 10 to 15% more energy after getting solar. Therefore, I normally pad the systems to cover that expected usage. So the most accurate way to size a system is to have people go onto their Edison site and pull the data from there. It'll give us exactly what they're using each month. Some clients are hesitant to do this. I always tell them it's, the only thing I can do if I log into your account is pay your bill. I can't steal your money. This isn't your bank account. This isn't your social security number, right? I have zero intention of paying your electric bill for you. So trust me, that's not going to happen. But if I can log into there, I can get their exact usage for them. And I'll show you what that looks like. So here's what it looks like when you log into the account. Go to my account, go to billing, view bills. You want to get the last 12 months. We want to see all 12 months, right? Click here for the previous year or whatever. Like for us, this is an old job aid I made, but obviously 23 and 24, you're gonna have to go back 12 months, view the bill. And you should also write down what they paid monthly, because we can give a 12-month exact what they paid out of pocket over the last year and show them what that looks like total annually. And then obviously what we're going to save them. So once you get into the bill, it says right here on this page that this is the total kilowatt hours used for that month was 460, right? So I do that 12 times and I can get their exact usage. But again, if people are hesitant to give us that, we can estimate it right off of this graph here. So let's show you what that looks like. So this is how I would break down a graph. So it gives us these increments. This is daily kilowatt hours, right? 16, 31, 47. So I take 16 minus 31 to figure out what that middle number is. And then I add it to 16, which is the difference is 8, right? So I add 8. This is 8, and 8 and 8 is 16, plus 8 is 24, plus 8 is 31, plus 8 is 39, and so on and so forth, right? So this is how I just kind of dissect the bill and then I do these lines across to try to figure out which each one of these bar graphs represents in terms of average kilowatt hours for the entire month, right? So, let's see. So then once I've done that, then I go to the months that they're in, right? And I'll say, for this month of September, they use 47 kilowatt hours for the month of September times how many days in the month, right? So if September has 30 days, I'll take 47 kilowatt hours times 30 days, and that's where I get my kilowatt hour usage. So that's what I put up here. 47 kilowatt hours a day times 30 days equals 1,410 kilowatt hours. So that's what they use for that month. And then I just repeat that for every month to get the total grand total. Now, again, this isn't 100% accurate, but it gets us pretty close. And again, over here, I'm just talking about how you come up with this calculation, how you do the math to get these intervals, right? Because this is what's on the bill, the 16, 31, and 47. I want to know what's in between so that when I do my line graphs between, I can kind of guesstimate pretty close where this is at. Like this one I'd say is, 15 kilowatt hours, right? This one I'd say it's, I know this is 8. And so this is under 8. So maybe I'll say that's 7, that's 10 or 9, and that's 14. Kind of understand how I'm coming up with these. I'm just kind of guesstimating where these numbers might be. And then again, I times it by the amount of months. So if it's 14 times 31 days in October, I get those numbers. And then here's just another example. For the month of October, notice that the bar is in between, right? For October, it's in between the 24 and the 31. So I gave it a value of 28. 28 times 31 days is 868 kilowatt hours for that month, right? And that's kind of how I just from the hip do this when people don't want to let us have access to their account. And I do it this way more often than not, to be honest. 12 months. So now I have 12 months. So I put in all 12 months into my calculator tool, and it gives me a grand total of what they're using. So in this particular scenario, the client's grand total for the year was 8,191 kilowatt hours for the entire year. That's what they used annually. Then all I do is I go to PV Watch Calculator, which the URL is right here. And it's also, I have it right here. And I plug this data in. So once I have this usage, I go to this website, and I plug in the zip code. When I do that, what happens is it gives me the closest weather tracking satellite station to this property. And this one I think is Daggett, right? So this gives us 50 to 60 years of sunlight averages for that zip code for that area. And so it's going to take that data and use it. And obviously, we have more sunlight in the summer than the winters. We have some years that are rainier than other years or cloudier than other years. This is a 50-year average. It's giving us the average of how much sunlight that this particular area gets. And then on this side, then you just hit this click here button. And on this page, I type in a system size. Doesn't matter. You just throw in any system size to see what it's going to produce and if it's going to cover their usage, right? So I plugged in 8 kW system and I left it defaults at 180 degrees, which is south. And if you click on this little icon here, it'll show you what north, south, east, west numbers are. 360, 90, 270, or I'm sorry, 290, 270, 0, 180, or 360 is up here. 0 or 360 as your north. Anyways, so once I see if it's too small or large, I can go hit the back button and correct the size. So I put in 8K, I click here to see how much the system will produce. And it's telling me an 8K system facing south is going to produce 15,000 kilowatt hours. Way too much, right? They're only using 8,200. So now I'm going to click the back button and drop the system size to get it closer to the 8,200. So then I lowered it to a 5K system. And now it's showing me producing 9,008 or 394. Again, remember, they were using 8,200. But I'm going to pad it because I know they're going to use more energy than they typically do once they get solar, because everybody does. And remember, the software assumes a south orientation. Therefore, I designed the system and the proposal tool for accurate production based on the true orientation of how many panels will lay on the roof. So remember back in the house picture with all the different arrays. I'm gonna do this calculation on every one. The amount of panels facing south, the amount of panels facing west, the amount of panels facing east, and I'll get a real accurate number. This is just kind of a quick from the hip way to do it, to figure out what size system somebody would need. So now we know the size. Now we need to understand how pricing works. So most people understand the difference between interest rates, right? That's what we do every day. 5% interest rate's better than 7%. Just like gasoline, $4 a gallon is better than $5 a gallon. We know if we're at a gas station and one gas station is at $4 and the other one's at $5 and that gallon of gas is going to get my car the same distance, I'm going to go for $4 because I understand that. We've all been grown up and conditioned to know and understand the differences of price per gallon and interest rates. Solar's is no different. But a lot of people just don't understand how it's priced. So it's called price per watt. And an 8K system selling at $5 a watt is 8,000 times $5 equals $40,000, right? So it's a pretty simple math, right? Let's say they're selling at $350 a watt. Well, that same system is now only $28,000. So understanding how solar's price is not as widely known as and understood as gasoline prices. Many solar companies take advantage of this fact and overcharge simply because the client doesn't know any better. A fair price per watt today is between $3 and $3.50 a watt. Okay. Let's go down. Lease, prepaid lease, power purchase agreement. So let's talk about these differences. So a lease is a 25 year contract. Regardless if it produces or not, you're making a payment. Some reasons for non-production are cloudy days, system faults, debris on the panel, and so forth. Most have a 3 to 3.5% escalator built in, so the payments increase annually by that amount, which isn't a lot. It's very minimal, but still they include those. A prepaid lease is simply, I'm going to prepay the lease at a discount, right? So maybe if I look at what I'm going to spend over the next 20 years on this lease, it ends up being $40,000. You do a prepaid lease, they might let you do it for $30,000 and you save 20 grand, but you got to pay the 30 grand up front. Power purchase agreement, these are the ones that we like. They're also 20, 25-year terms. But you're only paying for the energy that the system produces. So again, if you have any of these debris or system fault or cloudy day or whatever, doesn't matter. You're only paying for the energy that it produces. They also have escalators built in. And let's see. And the other great thing for us in terms of lending and real estate is on a power purchase agreement, because the payment fluctuates based on the fact that the payment is dictated by what the system produces. We don't have to hit them for towards a debt ratio on whatever the payment is, because we don't know what their payment is. It fluctuates every month. So Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Ginnie Mae don't require us to hit the client for a payment when they're assuming these leases or these PPAs when they're buying a home that's got one on it. If it's a lease and that's a fixed payment, they will hit them for that payment. It affects their debt ratio. In some cases can kill the deal for their loan because it pushed their debt ratio outside a qualifying realm. So PPAs are what we like. If they're going to do a PPA, or if they're going to do a lease, they don't want to own the system. We want to make sure they get on a PPA. Just like the automotive industry, these products are designed to benefit the leasing company more than the customer over the term. All these that's on the leases, prepaid lease in the power purchase agreement. All these products pitch a payment rather than a price. So they never see the price of the system. They only know about what the payment is. They usually will set the price per watt significantly higher, between $4 and $6 a watt. I actually just did one at $7 a watt, and I'll explain that one to you. And I have an example of it. A lease system and all of its incentives are owned by the leasing company commercially, not the homeowner. So because they own these systems commercially, the leasing company, they get a 30% federal tax credit. They get 26 federal, state, and depreciation, accelerated depreciation over 5 years. So their total incentives are significant. So again, here's an example. An AK system at $550 a watt, when we know $350 a watt is a fair price. Now the price of the system is $44,000. Where at $350 a watt, it's only $28,000. But they're selling payment, right? The customer has no idea the price that we set it at. They're just sold on a payment. And with that increase in price, well, let's look at it. The actual cost of the system to the contractor is only $13,000 in this particular scenario. So you can see that the lease system is profitable to the leasing company from day one, right? If they're getting all this money right up front, they're getting a 30% federal tax credit, that automatically paid for the system from day one. And then they get the depreciation, that's cash in hand, and then they get 20 years worth of payments at 3% escalator. So they're winning. The out-of-pocket cost of the customer over the term of the lease is 2 to 3 times as much as if they just bought it cash outright or financed it, which is kind of crazy. And I was a big proponent of buying the system versus leasing it because of this fact, right? Because it's 2 to 3 times more out of pocket over the term if they just bought it cash. But I have a change of heart of that, and I'll explain why here in a sec. So all solar produced energy is credit to the top most expensive tier of Summons Bill First. Lease systems are normally designed to offset 80% of the customer's total usage, hitting just those top tiers, leaving the bottom tiers not covered and exposed. They do this because the overall savings difference works out best this way. For example, let us assume a top tier rate is 55 cents a kilowatt hour, and the bottom tier is 13 cents. You've probably all seen that on your bills before. In this example, a solar panel costs $300 and produces 100 kilowatt hours a month. This isn't true. This is just an example, okay? 100 kilowatt hour used at 13 cents is $13 worth of electricity. One panel at a cost of $300 divided by $13, estimated with the solar equals 23. Therefore, it takes 23 months for the savings to pay off the cost. Same panel, 100 kilowatt at 55-cent offset. One panel at $300 divided by $55 pays it in 5.4 months. Therefore, obviously, the ROI is faster because we're paying off the panel a lot sooner. So again, because these guys focus on just offsetting your top tier rates and not your bottom tier rates. This issue with leaving the bottom tiers exposed is those cheap rates do not stay cheap. They will go up and could end up leaving the client in a worse position. Additionally, lease systems are on a 25-year contract. So if the home is sold, the new homeowners must qualify for and take over that contract. Additionally, almost every lease contract does not allow for one to add and expand to the system. If the homeowner increases their loads with an electric car, pool, and so forth, then they will be stuck paying both the utility company and the solar leasing company. And that's why I said earlier, it's super important to see if they plan on expanding their usage. Are they going to buy an electric car? Are they going to add a swimming pool or any other big load that might increase their usage? We want to size the system appropriately to cover that in advance. I don't do 80% systems. I always do 100+% systems to cover all their usage because it just makes sense. It will pencil better in the long run. And a lot of times another angle that they do with putting an 80% system on is they're coming in with a smaller system, which means it's cheaper than a 100% system. And that's how they kind of sell it. Oh, you don't need the bigger system. You still have cheap rates at 13 cents. Well, that 13 cents can end up being 26 cents a year or 2 years from now. And then you're exposed and their philosophy goes out the window, right? So I always do 100% system. Another issue with these products are their 20-25-year contract is designed for the current owner of the home. They go through the same process I described earlier to determine how much energy the owner uses annually to size a system. Statistically, the likelihood of that homeowner staying in that home for 20-25 years is very low. What is more likely is the home will be sold to a new family that will use more or less energy, usually more, than that system was designed for. Since these products are on a long-term contract and does not allow the system to be expanded on, the new owner will be stuck with a lease payment as well as a payment to the utility company. Even if the home is never sold, the homeowner will most likely purchase an electric car and or add other loads that will never be covered by a lease system. If the home is sold, the new homeowner must credit qualify to take over the lease, which frequently becomes an issue. Most lease contracts allow for the homeowner to buy it out after 5 years. The reason is the depreciation incentives the leasing company gets are all captured within this time frame. Usually the buyout after 5 years is the balance of the lease payments due, on average, that balance is twice the amount one could purchase a brand new system for. So they tell you they'll sell it to you once it's available to be sold after 5 years for fair market price. There's nothing fair about their prices. It's always double what you could buy a brand new system for, if not more. Lease, prepaid lease, power purchase. Okay, so all these products, so are these products bad? No, actually, they can be quite advantageous if done right. As I mentioned, statistically, per Fannie Freddie, the average homeowner sells every 7 years. If the homeowner finances a system, the balance owed at the time of selling is paid off with the proceeds of the sale. We just came across that. I think it was with Lisa Dorsey's client, I believe. I could be wrong. But if they go with a lease product, they don't pay off anything and thus keep all the proceeds. So remember, if you take out a solar loan, that loan is your loan and you've got to pay that off. Just no different if you got a loan on a swimming pool or kitchen remodel or something like that. It's a lien against a property. It's a loan and it has to be satisfied and paid off when you're selling your house. So if you got 30, 40 grand left on that, you're going to end up losing that in the proceeds of the sale if you purchase the system on a solar loan. But if you lease it or do a PPA, then you don't lose those proceeds because the new homeowner is going to take over that lease and you don't lose anything. If the client is like an average American who sells and buys their home every 7 years, the best option is 100% system. I normally shoot for about 120% to cover all that extra we talked about. By sizing this way, you're setting up both the current and future homeowner with a proper amount of energy. Do not sell them a lease, but rather a PPA. Remember, a lease has a fixed payment per the lending rules. We already talked about that. A PPA does not have a fixed payment. Okay, we already talked about that. Why are more systems leased than sold? Well, that's marketing. As I described, leases are more profitable than sold systems as the leasing companies set a price per watt high to capture more government incentives. All the big players with deep pockets advertise and push leases over ownership. We're talking Vivint, we're talking Sunrun, we're talking Solar City, we're talking all the big guys, right? They're the ones that sell the most. They're the biggest providers of solar, and they push lease. Why? Because instead of selling at $3.50 a watt, they can sell it at $5.50 a watt, $7 a watt, whatever they want, and they make more money. So obviously they're pushing products that make them the most money. Leasing companies promote free solar, government paid, nothing out of pocket, and 20-year warranty. As we all know, nothing is free. That's just a blatant lie. They don't tell you that when you own a system, you also get a 20-year warranty, nothing out of pocket because it's 100% financed. And you keep all the incentives, the 30% tax credit, and the depreciation if you buy it under your business. If you own a business and you purchase the system on your home, or a home under your business name, now your business owns a system and your business can depreciate it just like any other asset they might purchase. So that's kind of cool. Let's see. If they don't pay taxes and take advantage, if they don't pay taxes and can't take advantage of the 30% tax credit, a PPA may be the best choice. So you're going to find retiree people that no longer pay taxes, right? They can't take advantage of the 30% tax credit. That doesn't help them. So PPA is going to be a good choice for them. Benefits of ownership. So now we're talking about owning the system, not leasing it. The owner can add on and expand the system to include adding batteries at any time. 20-year warranty. 20-year warranties are identical to lease systems that carry over to the new owners if this home is sold. This includes equipment, production, and the roof where the system is installed. All that is under the warranty. They can be 100% financed on a fixed rate loan with no increases and no prepayment penalties. The loan is paid off upon the sale of the home, so the new owner has nothing to qualify for or take over. The owner gets 30% tax credit and the other incentives that are not available on the lease system. They have the option to apply the tax credit to the solar loan to reduce the payment. The owner ends up paying about half to 1/3 the amount of out-of-pocket she would on a lease system. Financing solar. So this is when we're owning the system and we're going to get a solar loan. The solar loans have a finance charge added to the product depending on the rate and the term chosen. Note the examples on the price sheet. The 25-year term at $299, where's $299? Right here, has a 33.49% dealer fee. What the heck is that? So in our world, in the mortgage world, we're held to high cost standards, right? High cost says we can't charge more than 3% of the loan amount in fee, or otherwise it's considered predatory lending and we get our hands slapped and we can't do the loan, right? We're all familiar with that. But these guys are charging 33.49% for this loan. How do they get away with that? Well, they get away with it because they call it a dealer fee. This fee is charged to the solar company, not to the homeowner, in order to utilize this product. If we, the solar company, want to offer that, then we have to charge that. But of course, we're not going to eat that. So we increase the system price by 33.49% to offset that, right? So if we increase the system price by 33%, if it's a, I don't know, 100K system, that's 33 grand more for that system just to get this low rate. Let's see how this compares to the 20-year term at 799 with no dealer fee, right? So 799, oh, it's not on here. But there is a 799. This is actually old, but in this comparison, there's a 799. I don't see it up here. So AK system sold at 350 a watt, 28 grand. 25-year term at 299, add the dealer fee of 13 grand. Now the system is 41 grand. So just by adding the dealer fee of 33 and some change percent, the price went from 28 grand to 41.7. Minus the 30% tax credit of 12,000 has a net price of 29,000. Payment is 138 for 25 years. Term out of pocket is 41.4. Now let's look at the 20-year term, 799 interest rate. There's no dealer fee. So the price stays 28 grand minus the 30% tax credit of 8,400 puts the net price at 19.6 versus 29,000, right? 10 grand less. Payment is 163 for 20 years as opposed to 25 years up here. Term out of pocket is 39,316. As you can see, there isn't much of a difference. However, if one is looking to pay the system off quickly, one may want a second opinion. There are no prepayment penalties on solar loans. And again, we're talking term out of pocket, 20 years, 25 years. We know per Fannie Freddie, no one's going to stay in their loan or their home that long, right? They're going to pay it off. And what we want to do as lenders and as mortgage professionals is we want to refi and roll this solar loan into their mortgage as soon as it's feasible, as soon as they have the equity and the rates are low enough, right? So we get a mortgage loan out of that. Quoting solar, most solar companies assume their client is going to finance a system, so their initial quote includes the dealer fee already padded into the price. If the client wants to pay cash, the solar company says they will give them a cash discount. That's a fabrication. There is no cash discount. They're just removing the dealer fee that they're assuming you're going to utilize to pay for whatever they're selling. I prefer to ask up front if they plan to lease, finance, or pay cash. The usual response is either yes, I will have to finance, or tell me the differences between lease, cash, and finance, which normally means they have some funds to pay for it cash. And just FYI, I've probably, I don't know how many hundreds of systems I've sold, but I'd say at least 50% of them were cash deals, believe it or not. There's a lot of people just pay cash for these things. I'm very transparent with explaining the dealer fee on finance systems, and more times than not, my clients pay cash and anticipate and appreciate the clarification. Our example on the 5 kW system earlier quoted 350 watt, 17,005, which they get 30% tax credit with a net price of 12,250. You can quote your clients this way, explaining it's from the hip estimate, but if they decide to finance or require any adder upgrades, which we'll talk about, once a site visit has been completed, then an estimate will be revised upon and updated. So there is a site visit. They go out, they verify the roof is in standing, they verify the service panel is equipped to be able to handle the system. Sometimes they have to upgrade the service panel where all your breakers are and whatnot to get the system to work, and there's extra fees that could be attributed to that. So we don't hold them to the price until the site visit is completed. Equipment. So the average solar panel today is around 400 watts. If you need a 8 kW system, divide 8,000 by 400 equals 20 panels. There are many panel manufacturers, but all panels sold in the USA have to meet our stringent fire and electric code requirements. So they're all considered tier 1 rated. All solar panels produce DC, direct current energy. That energy has to be converted to AC, alternating current, which is what we use all of our electronics. Anything you plug in the wall is AC. To convert this energy, we install inverters. There are several types. String inverter. String inverters string all solar panels together like Christmas tree lights. If one panel goes out, they all go out, just like our Christmas tree lights. If one panel is shaded and only produces 50%, they're all going to produce that 50%. Each panel in the string dictates what the other panel produces. These inverters are good for ground-mounted systems where all panels face the same direction and typically have no shading issues or anything like that. Microinverters, these inverters are mini inverters that mount under each panel. So if there's 20 panels, there's 20 inverters. These allow for individual production, so one panel is not dictated by the other. This is more of an expensive setup, but the more preferred method. Hybrid, Solar Edge, you'll hear about this a lot. So Solar Edge is a hybrid. They have a central inverter, which is this guy, that mounts on the side of the house. And then they have these DC optimizers that go underneath each panel. So this allows for each panel to operate independently, just like the microinverters, but it's less expensive. This is also a preferred setup for adding battery systems down the road. Although most of these companies with the microinverters also are adopting for all the battery hookups as well. So the one thing that you should know about this is, again, electronics, they don't do as well in the heat. So when you have a microinverter under a panel, it's getting hot, right? When your inverter's on the side of the house, it's cool. And these are solid state electronics, so they can handle the heat underneath the panel. So they work a little bit better than the microinverters in terms of not having any faults, but most people still like the microinverters. Adders, again, we talked about that. Sometimes there's going to be added cost to install a system, such as requiring a main service panel upgrade. Other things could be they need roofing, trenching, ground mounts, equipment choices, electric car charging stations, etc. Those are all things that we can do, and it would be added cost as we're going through what they're looking for. Selling solar is pretty easy. I always explain that one's electric bill is like having an adjustable rate mortgage, except this payment always adjusts for the worse and continues to go up year over year, never down. At least an adjustable rate mortgage has the possibility of decreasing based on market conditions, but not your electric bill. Always up, never down, right? For example, on a recent call to demonstrate the savings, I added my clients' last 12 months bills. Their out-of-pocket for electricity was $3,400 a year. I divided this by 12, showed their monthly average is $283. The solar loan payment would be $138 for a monthly savings of $145. More importantly, they eliminate the utility company's ability to raise the rates on them. They also increase their home value, making it much more appealing to prospective buyers down the road. Net metering. So once the system is installed and passes final inspection with the city, the application is sent to the utility company, connect the solar back to the grid. The approval is called permission to operate, or PTO. NEM is an agreement with the utility company to track and credit all solar production for the meter it's tied to. There are roughly 6 hours a day of solar production when the sun is up. For example, if one uses 100 kilowatt hours a day, the system needs to produce, on average, 100 kilowatt hours within that 6-hour window to zero out one's bill. Let's say your client uses 50 kilowatt hours in the day and 50 kilowatt hours at night when the solar is no longer producing. If all 100 kilowatt hours are produced in that 6-hour window, then the excess power generated will be banked as a credit with the utility company. Those credits are used as a debit at night. The day the utility grants permission to operate is the day the client's true-up period begins. For example, if they got permission to operate on March 1st, 2023, then the utility will track the system's production for the next 12 months. On March 1st, 2024 is their true-up bill date. They will evaluate all they used, all they produced for the past year, and either credit them for the overproduction or request payment for overusage. Technically, one is not obligated to pay anything until the true-up period is up annually, although I don't recommend that. I recommend paying your bills as they come in. Markets, as you know, it is now required for all new construction to include solar on homes and businesses. Teaming up with builders is a good approach. Pool contractors and servicers are another good target. Pool pumps use a ton of electricity. Most see their bills double or worse when they get a pool, because pool pumps are super high usage. Electric car sale reps and charging station install companies is another great target. Electric cars use about 3,000 to 5,000 kilowatt hours a year. Realtor and mortgage professionals have many relationships with homeowners, as do financial planners and tax guys. And I think everybody on this call right now is one of these. Candace is both financial planner and mortgage person. Claire is realtor. We got mortgage guys on here. We all fit in this bucket. Your own warm market, family, friends, coworkers, so forth, yada, yada. Practice sizing the system for yourself or someone in your warm market using this guide. You may end up with a customer. Good luck, and please ask me questions. I'm sure you guys got a ton of questions. I know I went fast, and I know this is a lot. And I will be sending this job aid to you guys so you can kind of practice this. Even use your own bill, use your own electric bill, and do the graph and play with it yourself, and just try to size your own system. And then send me a copy of it, and I'll cross check your work and see if you did it, if I think you did it right. But this will get you enough information. If you can absorb this job aid, get enough information to make you dangerous, because there's a whole lot more that goes into this after this initial phase, right? We have to go in and actually put it into a software where it designs a system, choose equipment, allocate for trees and shading issues and things like that, and looking for the adder stuff that may or may not need to be included. So there's a lot to it that I do all this for you guys. You don't have to do any of that. You don't have to learn that unless you want to. I'll be more than happy to teach you. And then there's a whole nother animal now with batteries. So as we just talked about, your net metering agreement with the utility company is you're sending all your excess energy you're producing back to the grid as a credit, and then you pull that credit as a debit at night when their solar is no longer producing to offset whatever you're using at night. However, moving forward under this new net metering agreement that we're all under now, which is called Net Metering 3, it's a third revision of it, they are now only giving a very small value of the energy that you send back to the grid. So what we're doing to counter that is we're installing batteries so that you're storing your energy in your battery and using it for your time of use period, which is 4 to 9 p.m. 4 to 9 is when they're charging you the highest rate. Why? Because they know that your solar isn't producing between 4 and 9 to offset it, and they're not going to credit you at the same rate. So as an example, let's say you're pushing your energy to the grid in the daytime, they're only giving you 10 cents a kilowatt hour credit for that, dollar credit for that. At night, they're charging you 50 cents a kilowatt hour between 4 and 9 to pull that energy back. So they're only giving you 10 cents off the 50 cents you owe them, right? So you still owe them 40 cents for each one of those kilowatt hours. So we're not going to do that. That's a ripoff. We're going to store the energy in our battery. And between 4 and 9 p.m., when you're charging us 50 cents, we're just going to live off of our battery. And then after 9, then it goes back to the cheap rate at 10 cents. And then I'll use my credits that you guys have with me and pull those credits at night after 9. And the batteries are programmed to do that. The batteries are also programmed to be, because that's considered consumption. There's also backup. So if the grid goes down, these batteries can automatically, without you doing anything, flip over to backup, and you can live off of your battery for backup purposes if the grid goes down for an hour or two or whatever. If you exhaust that battery in the middle of the night, well, you're gonna have to wait for the morning to come to recharge it with your solar, but at least you got power when other people don't. So that's something that's not on this job aid, but it's kind of new, and I'll be adding it here shortly. But questions, you guys? I know it was kind of fast. I know, it's kind of like learning real estate and mortgage. It's all Chinese, right? It's all like, what did you say? What is, all these acronyms and whatever. But so go ahead, fire away with any questions you have.
Do we need to have a license to sell this product?
No, I do. I have what's called a HIS license through the California Contractors Board, and you are required to have it, but as affiliates, you do not. So all you guys will be affiliates, and you'll close it just like I'm your your basically your branch manager for loans, and you can do like our out-of-state loans. I act as the qualified individual for your out-of-state loans. It kind of works very similarly. You guys are considered affiliates. You are not required to have a license.
Okay, perfect.
Anybody else? Claire, you got any questions? I know that was a lot.
Eric, as far as like commission goes on this, how does that work?
Oh yeah, let's talk about that. I forgot. So let's share another screen with you. Let's go to
Hey, sorry, I was just trying to figure out how to unmute myself.
I figured. I figured. I knew it.
I'm like, why is this not working?
How do I stop sharing? Stop sharing. You guys see this email page of mine? You
Yeah.
do? Oh, okay, good. So let me pull up. Do you see that?
I do.
Do you see that commission check of 27,600 or $362.22?
hmm
This is a check. I actually still have it right here. I'm going to actually deposit it today at Wells. I'm actually opening an account at Wells Fargo. This was on a 7.5 kW system. So my house, I have a 16 kW system. I have a pool. I have electric car, and I have a whole bunch of kids that don't know how to turn off lights and stuff, right? Candace knows what I'm talking about.
I do.
So I have a very big system. This system was a fraction of the size, but this was for a wholesaler. So wholesalers put this on a PPA and maxed it out at $7 a watt so that we could split the commission on this 50-50. And he doesn't care. His payment actually on this deal too was a little over $200 a month. So it's nothing crazy. It's a PPA. He's going to sell the home. And the new homeowner is going to take over a brand new, just installed state-of-the-art system with a Tesla Powerwall 3 battery, with a $200 payment. And instead of him purchasing the system and having a $50,000 nut on the house that he would have to pay back on the sale of the home, he's just going to turn this PPA over to the new homeowner, and at a $200+ a month payment. I think it's like $230 a month, with a $230 payment on a good size system that should zero out their bill. And he maxed it out so that we could we can get as big of a check as we can and do this over and over and over again. Now, you're not going to see that big of a commission on most systems. And I'll be very, very transparent. So the way it works right now, the solar company that I work with, SolarMax, I get $2.35 a watt is their price to me. That doesn't include adders. And adders, again, they're going to be batteries. They're going to be any of all the things we talked about. Ground mount, trenching, panel upgrade, yada yada. So, but $2.35 is their price. I usually sell at $3.35 a watt. I add $1 to it. Okay, that's a very fair competitive price. So if I'm selling a 5K system, which is tiny, and I'm earning $1 a watt, that's $5,000. If it's a 10K system, I earn 10 grand. If it's a 7K system, I earn 7 grand. And I split that 50-50 with my team, whatever it is we sell. If you can sell a PPA and we can up the price because again, we're selling payment, not price. If we can up it to $5 a watt or $6 a watt or whatever we can to where it's within their with what they want, then we'll try to get as high as we can. And if we get these flippers or these wholesalers, they'll be all over this, right? To be able to get a check like this on a tiny system, 27K system. Now here's the other thing that I'm going after, and you guys, this is no secret. You guys can take advantage of this too. If we go after developers, so the big brand new community, Silverwood, right? Down in Hesperia. So all new construction requires solar, right? In California. And a lot of other states are adopting this as well. But all new construction, doesn't matter if it's brand new it doesn't matter if it's new construction, residential, new construction, commercial, or an addition on your home, like you're doing an ADU. They all require solar. These developers, if you look at any of these big developments where they're putting solar on, they are not putting 100% systems on there. The rule of thumb is with the utility companies, which I don't agree with this formula, but it's 2 watts per square foot of living space AC, not DC. So as an example, let's say I have a 3,000 square foot home. That's 6,000 or 6 kW system is what they're saying. Double it, right? So for 3,000 to 6,000, 6 kW system AC, there's a conversion loss. It's conversion from when you're converting the energy from DC to AC, which is what your inverter does. There's about a 14% loss there. So let's say to get to a 6 kW AC system, you need about a 7.25 DC system, because if you subtract the 14%, you're closer to the 6 kW system. That's what Edison and all the utility companies will tell you is a way from the hip to size a system. I know that's not accurate anymore because everybody's going to electric car. Remember, 3,000 to 5,000 kilowatt hours a year extra you're going to be using for electric car. People are putting in electric. When they go solar, they put in electric water heaters, they put in electric stoves, they put in electric everything, dryers. They don't want to pay anything if they can absorb it all with their solar. So these developers, believe it or not, their average system size that they're putting on these homes is the bare minimum to pass code, right? And they're usually about 40% system. In other words, they're only going to cover about 40% of what the customer's actually going to use. So they're not efficient. They're just getting away with the minimum. What developers don't know, because this is such a brand new thing, is that solar, the warranties on these things, 20, 25-year warranties are used all the time from customers. I get customers all the time that call me and say, hey, can you check my system? I'm not sure if it's producing. Hey, I changed my internet provider and I can't connect to the system's monitoring anymore. I need to upgrade. Or, hey, I just bought a spa and I need to add more panels. Or, hey, I think my inverter went out and I need someone to come check it. Or a panel went out, I need someone to come check it. These calls come all the time. And what these developers don't realize is they're going to get bombarded with these calls. They're not used to it now because that happens 3-4 years down the road, but it happens. And they're going to be in for a rude awakening when they have to answer all these service calls from people wanting to know about their solar. So what I've been promoting, I have a couple of developers I'm working with right now, is let's not have you guys install the system, because first of all, you have to come out of pocket to buy the equipment to install it, one, and then you're going to get bombarded with service calls and you got to handle all the warranty and maintenance issues, right? So let us do the install through our solar providers. They will warranty the system. They will honor the servicing on it. You'll never get a phone call from a customer, and you don't have to pay for anything out of pocket. They'll pay for the system and install it yourself, and they'll do 100% system on there, putting the proper size system in for those future homeowners, and they get away from all the headache and the hassle. And to boot, we'll still build in 50% the commission or whatever we want to negotiate with them on whatever we're going to earn on the solar side of it to that developer. Because if you can get 150 homes, right, you're done for the year. You don't have to work for the rest of that year. You're done. One time deal, right? So these are angles that we're starting to promote to these developers who just don't know any better with with that. So so you see the big fat check, you see the money's real. Gave you some ideas. Any other questions? I know Aaron, he can't talk because he doesn't want to get fired from his job.
I'm on break right now.
Oh,
So
you are? Okay, good.
yeah, I got a little bit of time in between here at the
Yeah.
end.
And I know you jumped in late, Aaron, and as always, I will forward the link to you and everybody for this class so you guys can rewatch it if you missed anything or
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. And Aaron, you had sent me a text about getting the other videos that are on the my page or my YouTube channel.
I've gone through some of them already.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yes.
You have access to all of them, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, good. All right. I wasn't sure if you were having issues with I was a little bit confused on your text message if you were having issues accessing them or not.
No, I think I got all of them.
Okay. Cool. All right. So this will be one more, and I have yesterday's class as well on that I haven't uploaded yet to the YouTube channel, but I'll upload both those today. Yesterday's class was on with Acra and Michael Fairbanks, who's our account executive for non-QM products. So if you didn't get a chance to attend that class, I highly recommend you watch that video too. That'll be there tomorrow or today.
Yeah, that was a good one. I was in the class the whole time for that one.
Oh yeah, you were in that one. Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool. Claire, does your brain hurt? Was that too much info?
It really hurts. I had done a solar course before, I think, with power.
Uh-huh.
And so I do have a little bit of knowledge in there, but I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have to read that quite a few times over.
Yeah. I've done Power's course as well, and they're one of our providers that we can go with. They're in the same states as SolarMax, but they're getting a little bit more aggressive. So I'm going to start working deals on both. I don't like to put all my eggs in one basket in case things go sideways. And that's one nice thing about the solar industry, unlike the mortgage and the real estate industry, is I can utilize my license with any solar company I want, as many as I want. There's no restrictions until the CFPB gets involved with them or some other governing body gets involved with solar and starts putting in rules and restrictions. They haven't done so yet. Still kind of the Wild West.
That's great. That's great. The opportunities. I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, I know I went over my hour. I wanted to try to keep it under an hour, but you guys know me. I talk a lot. So there you go. But I will be saving this. I'm going to be uploading it. If you guys have any questions anytime, day, night, go ahead and obviously reach out anytime. And again, play with it. Pull up your own electric bill and just go through the job aid and play with it and see what size system you come up with, and then forward it to me. And I just want to cross-check your work and see if you nailed it or how close you are. That'd be a fun little exercise. Get your feet wet. All right.
Yeah. Thanks, Carrick.
Okay, gang. My pleasure. Talk to you soon.
Later. Bye.
Hey,
See
bye.
ya.
Okay.